A homeless boy found a girl half buried in the mud behind a row of boarded-up shops near the edge of the woods. She was unconscious, her breath shallow, and her red velvet dress ruined by rain and dirt. In her fist, she clutched a silver pendant with numbers etched on the back, an old number, like it didn't belong to anyone alive. He called it without thinking. What he didn't know was that the voice that answered belonged to a king, and not just any king, but Aldrich, Alpha of the High Wolf Court. And the girl he'd found was his only daughter. The sun was slipping below the horizon. 4:03 p.m. The last gold streaks of light filtered between empty buildings as Ronan crouched by the girl's side. He looked like hell mud-splattered jeans, worn boots full of holes, and a jacket that hadn't been warm in years. His fingers trembled as he lifted the old flip phone to his ear. He expected it to ring or go to voicemail. Instead, the growl that answered made every hair on his body rise. "Who dares use this line?" Ronan froze. His voice cracked. I found someone. She's hurt. She's not waking up. Describe her." He glanced down at the girl's pale face. She's blonde, maybe 18. Wearing this old-fashioned red dress. She looks rich and cold. Like freezing cold. There was silence on the other end, then a voice, lower now, more dangerous. "Where are you?" "Behind the Eastway shops, near the woods. Back alley. I think she..." "Do not move. Do not touch her again. Do not speak to anyone. We are coming." The line went dead. Ronan stared at the girl. The mud soaked through her sleeves, her skin like porcelain smeared with earth. He should have run. He should have walked away the second he saw her. But something in him, a tug he couldn't explain, kept him there, kneeling beside her like he belonged. The trees closed in like teeth. Ronan stumbled behind them, his arm yanked forward by one of the black-clad figures as they tore through the forest in absolute silence. No broken twigs, no crunch of leaves. Just wind, speed, and something old in the air, something that made his instincts scream. These people weren't people. They smelled of moss, fur, and steel. And they ran like the ground obeyed them. The mud from the alley clung to his knees, his heartbeat pounded in his ears, but they didn't even breathe hard. One of them carried the girl Luna, as if she weighed nothing, cradled against his chest like glass. Her hair swayed with every movement, pale and limp, streaked with drying mud. Her head lolled to the side, exposing a sliver of her throat. That's when Ronan saw it again. The mark. 3 long claw-like gashes curved along her collarbone, not fresh but not healed either. They glowed faintly, pulsing red like embers beneath the skin. He didn't know what that meant, but it felt wrong, unnatural, and it was spreading. The trees suddenly parted, and the world dropped away. They stood on the edge of a ravine. Across it, rising from mist and moonlight, was something out of a forgotten myth. Stone walls carved into the cliffside, towers wrapped in vines, and firelight glowing behind stained glass windows. A gate of twisted iron opened without touch, revealing a stone path that led into the heart of the mountain. Ronan's breath hitched. This wasn't just a home. It was a den, ancient, primal. They pulled him across the threshold. The stone underfoot was warm, vibrating with energy. Every hair on his body stood on end. Inside, the hallways curved downward. He smelled moss, smoke, blood. The walls were lit with torches and rune-carved lanterns that glowed faint blue. Strange symbols flickered along the stone, reacting to Luna's presence as they passed. Some of them glowed red near her. Others flickered and died. It was like the place was alive, and it didn't know whether to welcome her or fear her. The guards split off. 2 took Luna down one passage. The other 2 guided Ronan into a vast open chamber, filled with a scent he couldn't name. It smelled like a thunderstorm about to break. A fire pit blazed at the center. And in front of it stood a man built like a storm himself. Tall, broad, hair the color of iron, eyes like frostbite. He wore a heavy cloak lined in fur, but there was no mistaking the beast beneath. His presence was too large for the room. This was the voice from the phone. The Wolf King. Aldrich turned toward Ronan like he already knew everything. "You touched the pendant," he said. Not a question, a fact. Ronan's throat went dry. I found her. She was hurt, I didn't know. And yet you called. I thought she was dying. She was, Aldrich said, voice low. Still might be. He stepped closer, gaze sharp enough to flay skin. Most who touch royal silver burn. You didn't, why? I don't know. Ronan backed up a step. I didn't do anything special. She was there. I couldn't leave her. Instinct, Aldrich muttered. Or fate. Another figure entered, a woman dressed in slate-colored robes with silver embroidery that shimmered like moonlight. Her hands and face were streaked with dried blood. The healer. She's stabilized, she said softly. But the infection is deep. Whatever marked her wasn't just claws, it carried venom. Ancient. Meant to corrupt. Aldrich's jaw tightened. Can she hear me? The healer shook her head. She's not conscious. But she's connected to something. Or someone. Her pulse jumped when this one entered the room. Both of them turned to look at Ronan again. I don't know her, he insisted. I've never seen her before today. She held on long enough to drag herself into your path, the healer said, more to herself than anyone. The bond might have chosen first. What bond? Ronan demanded. She's my daughter, Aldrich interrupted. The words landed with the weight of a thunderclap. Ronan blinked. She's what? Luna, he said. My blood. My heir. The room felt too small. You're telling me she's a princess? Aldrich's eyes flashed, something lupine stirring behind them. She's more than that. Before Ronan could ask what that meant, the healer stepped forward and pulled back his sleeve. Let me see something. She pressed her fingers against his wrist. Her eyes narrowed. Then she moved faster than he thought possible. Her fingers sliced open the inside of his forearm with a silver-tipped blade. Ronan yelped, trying to pull away, but instead of bleeding out, the wound shimmered. Not red. Gold. The cut glowed for a moment before closing itself, skin knitting like it had never been there. The room went still. What the hell was that? The healer looked to Aldrich. He's not fully human. Ronan staggered back. What are you talking about? I'm just a guy. I live on rooftops. I eat whatever I can find. I'm not. You're something, the healer murmured. That blood isn't mortal. At least, not entirely. Aldrich said nothing. He stared at Ronan like he'd seen a ghost wearing his child's face. Behind them, another figure entered, whispering into the Wolf King's ear. Aldrich's face darkened. She's reacting again, the man said. She's waking up, and she's calling for him. Ronan's breath caught. Take him to her, Aldrich ordered. But now. They moved fast. Down twisting halls, past howling echoes that didn't sound like voices, until they reached a chamber bathed in blue light. Luna lay on a massive bed of fur and silk, her face pale and pained, her breathing shallow. Her fingers twitched when Ronan stepped into the room. He hesitated, but the healer nodded. Go! He stepped to her side. She stirred. Her eyes opened glass gray, haunted and locked on his. Safe, she whispered. Ronan swallowed hard. Yeah, he said. You're safe now. But in his gut, he felt it. Deep, primal. This was just the beginning. The room was quiet except for the rhythm of Luna's breathing, shallow, trembling but steady. Ronan sat beside her, unsure of whether to sit back or reach out, heart thudding like a war drum. The bed beneath her looked like something out of a fantasy, black furs, silk sheets, carved wooden frame that smelled faintly of cedar and wildflowers. But Luna was the only thing he noticed. She stirred again. Her lashes fluttered. One of her hands twitched against the fabric. Then her eyes opened fully. Not all at once. Not like in movies. It was slow. Painful. Her brows tightened. Her lips parted, cracked and colorless. And then her gaze locked on him, glass-gray irises still dulled by fever, but aware. You, she whispered. He didn't breathe. Hey. You're okay. You're safe. Her brow furrowed, like she didn't understand, like the word safe didn't mean anything to her. Then she reached out, not with fear, not to push him away, but to touch his arm. Just 2 fingers. Light, barely there. The moment they touched skin, something snapped in the air. It wasn't visible. Not exactly. But the torches along the stone walls flickered, as if reacting to something ancient, something living. A soft wind curled through the room, though the windows were sealed. Ronan felt a tightness in his chest, a sudden weight between his ribs, like he'd been anchored to something unseen. Luna blinked slowly. "It's you, the one I smelled." "What?" "I don't know your name," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I knew you were coming. I felt it." She didn't sound scared. Just, sure. Before Ronan could speak, the door creaked open and the temperature of the room dropped with it. Aldrich entered, flanked by 2 guards. His expression was carved from stone. "Leave us," he said to the guards, not taking his eyes off Luna. They hesitated. "I said leave." They bowed and slipped into the hall without a word. Aldrich strode forward and dropped to one knee beside the bed. He looked at Luna the way a father shouldn't have to fear behind strength, hope behind fury. His hand hovered over her shoulder but didn't touch. "You scared me," he said, voice rough. "You were gone too long." "I had to go," she murmured, turning her head toward him, but not letting go of Ronan's wrist. "They said it was important." Aldrich's jaw clenched. "Who said?" She swallowed. "A voice. In my dreams. It told me to find him." Aldrich turned his gaze on Ronan so fast, Ronan nearly flinched. "What did you do to her?" "Nothing," Ronan said, lifting his hands. I found her in an alley. I called the number. That's it." "She reached for you," Aldrich growled. "Not the guards, not the healer. You." "I didn't ask for this." The healer entered, then quiet as a ghost, and crossed to Luna's side. Her hands hovered over the girl's skin, fingers glowing faintly. "She's stabilizing," the healer said softly. "The venom's fighting her still, but the bond is working." Aldrich narrowed his eyes. "Bond?" The healer nodded once. "It's weak. Incomplete. But it's there." "What bond?" Ronan asked, backing a step away from the bed. "What does that even mean?" The healer stood, turning her strange, silver-glinted eyes on him. "Werewolves form soul bonds, connections deeper than words. Older than our laws. Between life mates, yes. But also between protectors, guardians. Sometimes the bond chooses before the mind understands it." "That sounds insane." "You felt something, didn't you? When she touched you." He opened his mouth to deny it, closed it again. He had felt something. Like gravity had changed direction. Like his chest had filled with thunder. Luna's voice broke the silence. "I don't want him to leave." Aldrich turned sharply to her. "You don't even know who he is." "I don't have to." "You've been poisoned. You've been hunted. You don't know what thoughts are yours and what was planted. I felt him before he ever found me." Her eyes welled, but her voice didn't shake. "I was dying. I couldn't move, couldn't think. And all I knew was one word. Ronan." His name, on her lips, hit like a blow. "How do you know my name?" he asked, voice cracking. She closed her eyes. "I don't. I just heard it. In the dark." No one spoke. Then the healer murmured. "The bond's choosing. It's rare for 2 unmarked souls to connect without ritual. But when it happens, it can't be undone." Aldrich finished, his voice a thundercloud. Ronan took a breath. "So what does that mean for me?" Aldrich stood slowly, like the act required effort. His eyes were colder now, measured. "It means," he said, "you're not leaving this territory. Not until I know what you are, and why my daughter's soul is pulling toward yours like a wolf to the moon." Luna's hand tightened around Ronan's. And deep in the mountain, far beyond the reach of the wind, something howled. The scent hit him like a memory he'd never lived. It wasn't perfume. It wasn't blood. It was wild smoke, rain, cedar, something old and aching. Luna had fallen asleep again, her hand still wrapped around Ronan's wrist like she feared she'd vanish if she let go. But her scent had changed. Stronger, sharper. Like the bond between them had deepened overnight. Ronan stared at her, heart drumming too fast, his skin tingling. Then came the burn. His veins flared. Not fire, more like pressure, like his blood recognized something it had been searching for in silence. He stumbled back from the bed, clutching his chest. His breathing hitched. Something inside him was waking up. A sudden knock cracked through the tension. One of the guards stepped into the chamber, his gaze flicking between Ronan and the girl. "The Alpha requests your presence." "Now." Ronan nodded, still shaken. He followed the guard out, down winding halls lit by flickering rune lamps. The pack's stronghold was like a living thing, ancient stone, and thick roots pulsing with quiet energy. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Aldrich waited in a vast circular chamber at the bottom of the den. He wasn't alone. The healer stood beside him, and an older wolf one Ronan hadn't seen before. This one had storm gray hair braided with bones and scars that told stories even silence couldn't hide. "Sit," Aldrich said. Ronan sat. The old wolf approached slowly, his eyes not unkind. "I've been the lorekeeper of this pack for 70 years, he said. "And I've never seen a reaction like the one you had this morning." Ronan didn't answer. "Your blood. It stirred when Luna touched you," the healer said. "But now it's reacting to her scent. That only happens when blood calls to blood." "I'm not a wolf," Ronan said. "I've never shifted. I've never even felt." "You're not pure human either," Aldrich interrupted. "Your healing, your resilience. The way the pendant didn't burn you, none of it fits." The lorekeeper stepped forward and placed a bundle wrapped in worn leather onto the table. "This," he said, unrolling it with care, "was recovered last night. One of the scouts brought it in. Hidden in a ruined apartment building just outside town." Ronan stared. Inside the bundle was a book. Old. Cracked. The edges of the pages were torn and weather-stained, but the second he saw the name etched into the inside cover, his throat closed. Sarah Whitlock. His mother's name. He reached out with trembling fingers and opened the first page. It was her handwriting. Loopy and sharp, rushed like she never had enough time to get the words out. He scanned the lines. Lists of locations, names of old towns, notes about the curse and the bloodline and… there. A circled passage. If he ever asks, tell him the truth. His father was not a man the world would accept. But Ronan was born for more. He was always meant to be the bridge between the two, the last Whitlock, the hidden line, the forgotten protector. The room spun. Ronan clutched the journal so tight it might tear in half. "What is this?" he rasped. "Why did she never tell me?" "Because she was hiding you," Aldrich said quietly. "From us. From them. From everyone." The healer stepped forward. The Whitlock line was believed to be extinct. They were guardians once. Part wolf, part something else. A bloodline born of treaty and sacrifice. The last of them vanished nearly 2 decades ago. "My mom," Ronan whispered. "She buried the name. Changed everything. But this journal," she tapped the open page, "it's a record. A warning. And a prophecy." The lorekeeper unfurled an ancient scroll from his sleeve, the parchment yellowed and brittle. He pointed to a passage, translating aloud. "When the moon burns red and the air walks blind, a child of the wild and broken line will rise unclaimed with untamed flame to guard the pack from bloodstained time." The words echoed, soft and sharp like a knife through fog. "You think that's me?" Ronan asked. "You're a Whitlock," the healer said. "That alone makes you more than legend. But bonded to the air? Chosen by the blood?" Aldrich stared at him. "You're not here by accident." "I didn't ask for this," Ronan said. "I didn't ask to be hunted. Or dragged into prophecy." "Prophecy doesn't care what you want," Aldrich growled. "It only cares that you survive long enough to matter." Ronan looked down at the journal again, his mother's words. Her secrets. Her protection. She'd run from this world. Run from Aldrich. Run from power and war and blood. But she hadn't destroyed the truth. She'd left it for him. And now, it was waking up. The forest behind the den pulsed with heat, breath, and movement. Luna stood barefoot in the moss, her crimson dress replaced by tight black training gear that clung to her frame like second skin. Her blonde hair was tied back, exposing the healing claw marks across her collarbone. They'd faded from angry red to silver-threaded scars, but the venom still flickered under her skin when she pushed too hard. She gritted her teeth and kept moving. She was tired of being the girl who needed saving. Ronan watched her from the edge of the clearing, breath shallow, ribs aching. One of Aldrich's lieutenants had just slammed him into a tree hard enough to crack bark, and now his side throbbed like it had been split open. He didn't know the lieutenant's name. Didn't care. All he knew was that the wolves were testing him, and none of them pulled their punches. Again, the trainer barked. Ronan got up. He didn't want to. Every muscle screamed, and his vision blurred. But something about the way Luna was watching him, like she was willing him to rise, burned through the pain. He launched forward, barely ducking the strike aimed for his throat, spun, and landed a hit square into the wolf's ribs. It didn't matter. The lieutenant snarled, shifted partially mid-fight fur along his arms, claws at his fingertips, and caught Ronan by the neck. Lifted him clean off the ground. The wind strangled out of his lungs. "Stop!" Luna shouted, stepping forward, but a sharp look from one of the pack elders froze her mid-stride. The lieutenant dropped Ronan, letting him crumple like a bag of bones. He wheezed, coughing dirt, pain coiling behind his ribs like barbed wire. "This is what you think will protect the heir?" The lieutenant growled. "He bleeds too easy." "She chose him," Luna snapped. "The bond chose him." "Then the bond is flawed." The words echoed, bitter and cold. That night, Ronan sat in a room that barely qualified as a cell bare stone, a cot, a candle. His shirt was in tatters, blood dried in thick flakes along his ribs and collarbone. He pressed the cloth Luna had given him against a bruise and winced. The door creaked. He didn't look up. "I didn't ask them to do that," Luna said quietly, stepping into the room. "They think pain equals proof." He huffed. "Guess I failed the entrance exam." "No." She sat beside him. "You got back up." They sat in silence for a while, the candlelight flickering shadows across the stone. Then she whispered, "They're scared of you." He looked at her. "Not because you're strong," she said, "but because you don't belong. Yet the bond claimed you anyway. You didn't grow up in their world. You weren't shaped by it. That makes you unpredictable. And that makes you dangerous." Ronan stared at his hands, still bruised. "I didn't choose this." "I know," she said. "But neither did I." Outside, the howl of a wolf shattered the night. It wasn't a song, it was a warning. By morning, the political storm had begun. The den's great hall, usually quiet during council hours, buzzed with low murmurs. Wolves clustered in corners, whispering with hunched shoulders and narrowed eyes. Names passed between them like poisoned coins: Ronan, Luna, Aldrich, Seraphine. Ronan kept to the walls, watching, listening. Seraphine appeared mid-morning. Graceful, cold, she moved like royalty. But her eyes held no warmth, just calculation. Her silver hair was braided tight, every step precise, every nod performed. She didn't speak loudly. She didn't need to. She asked questions. Loud enough to be heard. Should the daughter of the Alpha be bonded to someone outside the bloodline? What if the Whitlock boy is cursed, not chosen? Can we risk the safety of the pack on a broken prophecy? Aldrich didn't respond, not openly. But Ronan saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand clenched the edge of the war table tighter with each whisper that reached him. Seraphine didn't need a fight. She had doubt. By midday, 2 of the council elders had already shifted their support. One more would tip the balance. Luna was in the lower training den, sweat slicking her skin, pushing herself harder than ever. She threw herself at every opponent they gave her. She didn't ask for breaks, didn't flinch. Every hit was penance, every dodge was defiance. Ronan found her afterward, leaning against the stone wall, breath coming in shallow bursts. "You're going to break something," he said. "I already did," she muttered. "My status." He didn't know what to say. "She's building a case," Luna added. "Seraphine, if enough council members call for a vote, she can challenge my father's leadership. Claim the bond makes me unfit to be heir." "That's insane," Ronan said. You nearly died for this pack. Dying is honorable. Bonding with a half-blood stranger? That's treason to them. He stepped closer. Then, what do we do? She looked up at him, something fierce and unshakable in her eyes. We fight. And for the first time, since she collapsed in his arms, he believed her. The mountain never slept. Beneath the thick roots and twisting stone, the heart of the den beat like a buried beast, steady, deep, older than anything Ronan could understand. The further they went, the colder the air became, until their breath fogged in front of them in faint white streams. Luna moved like a shadow through the narrow passageways, barefoot and silent, her hair braided back, her eyes focused. She didn't speak, only glanced behind her now, and then to make sure Ronan kept up. No guards. No torches. Only the faint glow of moss-threaded stone and the pulse of something ancient in the rock. Where are we going? He whispered finally. Luna didn't stop. The archive den. He frowned. I thought that was just a myth. That's the point. The passage opened suddenly into a vast chamber, like the inside of a hollowed-out cathedral. The walls were lined with shelves carved directly from the mountain itself, stacked with scrolls, stone tablets, leather-bound books sealed with claw clasps and silver chains. Some glowed faintly. Some pulsed with energy. And some looked like they hadn't been touched in centuries. This is where the first wolves stored their records, Luna said softly, stepping into the space like she was stepping into a memory. Only bloodlines have access. No outsiders. No council eyes. So how did you get in? She turned to him, a sly spark in her eye. I'm the Alpha's daughter. I have secrets. He almost smiled, but the weight of the air around them pressed the thought back into his chest. Luna moved to one of the far shelves and ran her fingers along a thick spine bound in cracked green leather. This is the volume we need, she said, pulling it free. Bloodlines. Forbidden lines. Exiled legacies. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Sounds cheerful. She dropped the book on the stone table in the center of the room. The pages cracked as she opened it, dust spiraling up like ghosts. Her fingers moved through the records quickly, too quickly. She'd been here before. Then she stopped. A full-page illustration stretched across yellowed parchment, a wolf standing beneath a shattered moon, blood dripping from its chest. Beneath it, bold runes etched in deep red. She translated aloud, voice steady. Is greater than when the last child of exile walks unseen. Is greater than. And blood once broken binds the queen. Is greater than. The balance lost shall stir again. Is greater than the boy of shadow. The blood of men. Ronan leaned over the page. It says, boy of shadow. That's not me. Luna turned the page. Wait. There's scrawled in the margins. Almost like it had been added later was a series of entries. Personal. Desperate. Written in a mix of old tongue and modern script. She squinted, then began to read. Is greater than. They think we're gone. That the Whitlocks burned with the last war. But we survived. In secret, in hiding. The child carries both lines. The curse and the cure. Half beast, half blood. He must never be found by the court. If they discover what he is, they'll destroy him before he awakens. Ronan stepped back like the words had hit him in the chest. Luna looked up at him. That's your family. Your mother's line. Half-beast, he said quietly. Half-blood. That's what they keep saying. That I'm not normal. You're not, Luna said, closing the book. But neither am I. He stared at her. You think I'm this boy of broken blood? I think you were never supposed to survive, she answered. And the fact that you did? That you found me? That the bond chose times you asterisk. She looked down at the page again. That means this prophecy is still alive. Ronan turned from the table, pacing a few feet away, hands gripping his hair. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be part of some ancient curse or prophecy. I just wanted to. He stopped, shaking his head. Hell, I didn't want anything. I was fine just surviving. No, you weren't, she said. I saw it in your eyes when we met. You've been running your whole life. From what you are, from who you are. He looked at her then, and the fear in his chest finally had a name. I don't know who that is. Luna stepped forward, slow, careful. She placed her hand over his heart. Then let's find out. The mountain groaned above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. Something was shifting, waking. Ronan looked down at the book again, the ancient page glowing faintly under the weight of its own truth. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of being times something asterisk. He was afraid of what would happen if he kept pretending he was nothing. The moon hung heavy that night, too full, too bright, casting silver light across the den as drums thundered in the valley below. The festival of the first howl was supposed to be sacred, a night of unity, blood, and celebration. Fires burned in great spirals across the cliffs. Wolves danced in human skin and beast form alike, and the air was thick with the scent of pine, roasted meat, and ancestral songs. Ronan stood near the edge of the gathering, shoulder to shoulder with Luna, still trying to pretend the eyes on him didn't matter. They all watched, some with suspicion, some with fear, and a few with a curiosity that felt colder than indifference. He didn't wear ceremonial robes or war paint. Just a simple tunic, and the ring Luna had placed in his palm earlier. It bore the Whitlock crest, a sigil thought long dead. "You nervous?" she asked, smiling faintly. "I'm not a big fan of crowds," he muttered. She leaned closer. "You faced down a lieutenant twice your size. This is cake." He smirked, but it didn't last. There was a tension beneath the music tonight, a silence hiding in the cracks between the beats. It prickled under Ronan's skin, the way it always had before his mother moved them in the middle of the night. A feeling that things were about to go wrong. Then the drums stopped, just for a moment. The fire nearest the cliff roared up, not bright, not golden, but green. A scream tore through the air. Everything exploded. Wolves shifted mid-run, panic flooding the field. Fire spread too fast. Smoke clawed at the stars. Figures in silver-lined cloaks burst from the tree line, blades flashing in the moonlight. Not pack. Not allies. Ronan didn't think. He grabbed Luna's hand and turned, but she was already moving. "They're here for my father," she shouted. "We have to get to the high table." But it was too late. From the center dais, Aldrich was already engaged. 3 attackers surrounded him faster than Ronan could track, brutal and relentless. One plunged a blade into the alpha side, twisting it deep. Ronan shouted. Aldrich roared, swung his attacker through the air, and collapsed to one knee. Chaos reigned. Then came the scream that shattered him. "Ronan!" He spun just in time to see Luna being seized, 2 figures cloaked in moonsilver, dragging her backwards. She fought, kicked, bit, howled, but they moved with purpose. Like they knew exactly what they needed and who to take. Ronan ran. He didn't think about the crowd. Didn't care about the blades. He leapt through fire and smoke, sprinting after the flicker of red fabric as Luna disappeared into the trees. He reached the edge of the woods and was thrown back. A wall of heat and force slammed into his chest. A sigil flared in the dirt, glowing like lightning, a ward, ancient and brutal. He hit the ground hard, pain blooming through his ribs. "No!" he gasped, trying to push past it again. The ward sparked, snarling like a beast, and sent him flying once more. Then she was gone. The forest swallowed her whole. Everything inside Ronan cracked. He was still on the ground, breath ragged, staring into the dark, when a hand gripped his shoulder. It was Aldrich, barely standing. Blood dripping from his side, his arm wrapped in torn cloth. His eyes were glassy, but burning with the fire of old kings. "They took her," Ronan said. Voice barely there. "They took her." "I know," Aldrich growled. "We have to go after them." "We will." "When?" Ronan snapped. "After they've killed her? After they've broken the bond?" Aldrich didn't answer. Behind them, the den was trying to rebuild. Fires were being smothered. Healers shouted. Wolves shifted back into human form, bloodied and dazed. Ronan turned, jaw clenched. This was Seraphine. Aldrich's silence said everything. "You knew she was dangerous," Ronan said. "And you let her stay. She was once loyal. She was never loyal." Aldrich's grip tightened. "Then prove you're more than her mistake. Rise, Whitlock." The pack doesn't need rage, it needs a hunter. Ronan's breath hitched. He looked at the place Luna had vanished. Not a single trail. No footprints. No scent. Only a flicker of red velvet torn on a branch, and the memory of her scream. He stood slowly. Everything inside him had gone still. Cold. Sharp. "I'll bring her back," he said. And when he did, there would be no more politics. No more whispered threats. No more waiting. Only reckoning. And moonlight soaked in blood. The world had narrowed to one thing: her. Luna's scent pulsed through the earth like a heartbeat Ronan could feel in his bones. Not just a memory, not just a trail, it was alive inside him now. Her pain, her fear, her pulse, it tugged at something buried deep beneath skin and muscle and bone. He didn't question it. He didn't try to understand. He just ran. The wind tore at him as he moved through the forest, past clawed trees and twisted roots, faster than he'd ever moved before. His breath burned, muscles screamed, but none of it mattered. The bond had awakened. And it was calling her back. Each step pulled him deeper into the wild's untamed places, even the pack avoided. Shadows moved in the dark. Some ran parallel. Some hunted. The scent of blood grew stronger. Then came the howl. Not Luna. Not Aldrich. Not Pack. Ronan skidded to a stop, just as 3 wolves burst through the tree's rogue, lean, eyes burning amber with madness. Their teeth were stained red. Their forms were stretched, broken, half-shifted like they'd been stuck mid-transformation for too long. They didn't speak, they lunged. Ronan didn't have time to think. The first wolf slammed into him, and they hit the ground hard. Claws raked across his chest, and heat exploded through him. Not pain, fire, not fear, rage. It cracked through his ribs, roared through his lungs. His vision bled gold. The second wolf rushed from the side, jaws wide. Ronan rolled, kicked the first one off, and something inside snapped. He didn't feel the bones break. Didn't hear the scream escape his own throat. All he felt was the shift. His hands tore forward into claws, not smooth, not graceful, raw. His spine cracked, legs twisted, skin rippled as thick fur bloomed over his arms and chest. His jaw elongated. The world sharpened into scent and heat and instinct. The fire inside him was no longer contained. He wasn't human anymore. He wasn't just wolf. He was both. The third rogue charged. Ronan met it midair, claws slashing, fangs sinking into its shoulder. They rolled across the forest floor in a blur of fury and blood. He didn't remember how long the fight lasted, only that by the end, the rogues lay unconscious or fleeing, and he stood over them, chest heaving, golden eyes still glowing. Then the scent returned. Her. It hit him like a signal flare. Faint, but close. He ran again on all fours, this time through narrow gullies and across shallow streams, tracking her like his body had been built for it. He crossed into hunter territory before he realized. The traps were subtle at first. Wires beneath leaves, silver glints embedded in bark. He dodged them all until the bolt hit him in the shoulder. The pain was instant, silver-laced. It burned through his nerve endings like acid. He dropped, growling. Shifted enough to tear the bolt free. Another snapped past his ear. Voices shouted. Flashlights slashed through the trees. Move in. He's marked. 3 hunters closed in, rifles raised. Ronan crouched low, blood dripping down his arm, his body trembling with effort. Not fear, not anymore. One hunter stepped forward. He's the hybrid. The second lifted a vial of something dark red. Use the serum. We bring him in alive. Ronan stood. His muscles screamed in protest, the wolf beneath his skin restless, unfinished. The pain made the world tilt, but the bond flared again. Luna's fear twisted in his chest like a knife. He didn't have time to be afraid. He roared and shifted fully, not with a jagged, unfinished agony from before. This time, it was complete, whole, the beast within, unchained. He moved before they could react. One hunter went down screaming. Another dropped his weapon and ran. The third tried to fire, but Ronan slammed into him, sending him flying against a tree. The vials shattered in the dirt. He stood over them, breath ragged, his fur soaked in sweat and blood. Then silence. Except for the bond. Closer now. He forced himself back into human form, shuddering with the effort, and followed the pull through the trees until he saw it a ruined church buried in vines and rot. Faint torchlight flickered inside. And inside that light, a scream. Luna. He didn't stop to think. He charged the door, kicked it in, and stepped into firelight and madness. But none of it mattered, because she was here, and he had come for her. The sacred grove was burning. Flames licked the outer trees, unnatural and green, curling like snakes up the ancient trunks. The air cracked with magic old, angry, and wrong. Ronan stumbled into the clearing, breath ragged, the weight of blood and battle thick on his skin. His body screamed from the shifting, from the bolts, from the run through hunter-infested woods, but none of that mattered. Luna was on her knees at the center of the grove, trembling. Her red dress was soaked in ash and torn at the hem. A sickly glow shimmered beneath her skin veins lit with something dark, something eating her from the inside. She clutched her chest like her heart was failing. And standing above her was Seraphine. The elder wolf wore black ceremonial armor, polished bone woven through her braids. Her silver eyes blazed with fury. She held a dagger coated in a shimmering oil, thick and iridescent. Poison. Ronan could smell it from across the grove, deadly even to wolves. "She's tainted," Seraphine called, her voice echoing through the grove like a curse. She let the bond corrupt her blood. She chose weakness. She chose him. Ronan stepped forward, fists clenched. She chose life. Seraphine turned toward him slowly. "And you are the sickness. Half human, half failure. You should never have been born." "I didn't come here to argue," Ronan growled. "Let her go." "You think this is about her," she snapped. "This is about power. This is about bloodlines that obeyed the law. Wolves that sacrificed for centuries. And now she binds herself to a creature of exile? A mistake?" Ronan moved. Fast. Faster than she expected. He tackled her across the grove, the two of them crashing into the roots of the great tree at the grove's center. The blade flew from her hand, skittering into the shadows. She hissed, her form beginning to shift, bones snapping, fur exploding across her limbs. But Ronan didn't back down. He shifted mid-swing, claws raking across her shoulder. Seraphine howled, slammed him with the force of a wrecking ball, and they tumbled through dirt and root and ash. She was strong, old, and trained, but Ronan had something she didn't. He burned. Each strike he took only sharpened his senses. Each breath brought Luna's scent back to him, clearer, closer. Her pain echoed inside him like a drumbeat. His body was a storm now, part man, part wolf, part something older, deeper. Seraphine lunged, going for his throat, but he ducked low and slammed her into the stone altar, cracking it in half. "You were never meant to lead," she spat. "You're just a boy." "I'm the bloodline reborn," Ronan said, eyes glowing gold. "And you're done." She came at him again, fangs bared, but he caught her wrists, twisted, and forced her to the ground. Her bones groaned under the pressure. For a moment, he wanted to end her, wanted to tear her apart. But Luna's voice stopped him. "Ronan, don't." He looked over. She was collapsed, breathing shallowly, her skin almost translucent. The poison was winning. Ronan let go of Seraphine and ran to Luna. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands shaking. Her eyes fluttered open, clouded. Her lips parted, but no sound came. "I'm here," he whispered. "I found you." She blinked once. Slow, and then her body arched in agony, the black lines of poison spreading across her chest. "No," he breathed. No, stay with me." Then something moved in him like before, but deeper. His palm found her heart, and the bond lit up. A rush of warmth surged through his body, not heat, but light. Like liquid moonlight pouring from his core into her skin. The mark of the Whitlock line, that forgotten sigil, burned into his wrist, glowing brighter than it ever had. His blood was answering hers. Healing, cleansing. She gasped, her body jerking once, then falling still. The poison faded. The light dimmed. She breathed, and color returned to her cheeks. Ronan pulled her into his arms, heart pounding, the aftermath of power rushing out of him like a broken dam. She clung to him, shaking, alive. Behind them, Seraphine crawled toward the altar, blood dripping from her mouth. "You can't fix what's broken," she growled. "You can't rewrite fate." Ronan rose slowly, stepping between Luna and Seraphine. "No," he said. "But I can choose it." Seraphine bared her teeth, but there was no strength left in her. Her supporters had fled. The grove no longer listened to her voice. Ronan didn't strike the final blow. He didn't need to. He turned his back to her and picked Luna up. The sacred grove, once shrouded in fire, now quieted. The flames receded. The winds died. The trees stood tall once more. As they crossed the threshold of the grove, Aldrich waited, bloodied but alive, supported by two of his lieutenants. His eyes met Ronan's, and, for the first time, the Alpha bowed his head. Ronan held Luna closer and walked past him, not as an outsider, but as something more. The Alpha the Wild had chosen. The full moon hung low and luminous over the mountain, casting its silver glow across the packlands below. The fires had all burned out, the blood had dried, and in the quiet, something ancient shifted, something that had been waiting, dormant, for generations. Ronan stood at the heart of the stone circle, the sacred ground where no false king had ever walked. He wore no crown, no armor, only the mark of the Whitlock line burned onto his wrist and the eyes of every wolf on him. Hundreds had gathered, lining the cliffs and trees, silent as the night. The scent of ash still lingered from the battle, but something else rode the wind now. Hope. Aldrich stepped forward first. His wounds were still healing, but he carried his authority like a second skin. His voice, when it came, was rough but strong. By ancient right and the will of the grove, by bond and by blood, the Alpha's mantle must pass. He turned to Ronan. "Do you, Ronan Whitlock, accept this legacy?" Ronan's voice didn't tremble. "I do." "Do you swear to protect not only wolf-kind, but the balance between our world and theirs?" "I do." "Then kneel." Ronan dropped to one knee as Aldrich raised the ceremonial blade, not for battle, but for binding. He sliced a clean line across Ronan's palm, then his own, pressing their blood together until the earth beneath them stirred. The pack howled low at first, then rising like thunder. Aldrich stepped back, and Ronan rose. He was no longer the outsider, no longer the boy who'd slept under broken rooftops and stolen warmth from alley fires. He was the heir of two legacies, human and wolf, exile and royalty, a living bridge between what was and what had to come next. Luna stepped forward then. Her dress was white, her hair braided with silver threads and feathers from the sacred grove. The poison was gone, her body healed, but a new strength radiated from her, now quiet, steady, unshakable. She didn't smile, but her eyes found Ronan's, and the bond between them sparked again, bright and undeniable. She took his hand, pressing her palm to his. Blood to blood. And together, they faced the pack. "For too long," Luna said, her voice echoing clear. "We've lived in fear. Of humans. Of hybrids. Of change. But the moon doesn't fear the sun, it simply waits for its time to rise." Ronan's voice joined hers, low and even. "We are not beasts hiding in the dark. We are not shadows meant to fade. We are wolves. And the time of hiding is over." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was breathless. And then the howling began again, first one, then many. Not in mourning this time, not in rage. It was recognition. A call to a new era. A call to unity. A call to rise. Ronan lifted his head, let the sound fill him, and then tipped his face toward the moon. The howl that tore from his throat was no longer unsure. It wasn't angry or afraid. It was home. Luna howled with him. And around them, the pack joined in. A symphony of blood and spirit and future. He wasn't a stray anymore. He was the moon's chosen. And the wild had finally answered his call.